Hello, everyone. As I reflected on what impacted education the most over the past few years, I couldn't help but think about the day that our lives had completely come to a halt. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the immediate impact that COVID-19 had on the education system, as well as the long-term effects that are still present today in 2024. The COVID-19 pandemic caused an unexpected disruption to the daily lives of those all around the globe, affecting the education systems in every continent. At the peak of the COVID-19 crisis, 94% of the world's student population was affected by school closings. These closures led to significant learning gaps that intensified existing educational inequities, and the effects are still present today. Many students are reported to still fall behind in subjects such as math and reading, and the aftermath is still affecting students' mental health with a rise in depression, anxiety, and social isolation. There was an abrupt transition to online learning due to the lockdown enforced to minimize the risk of COVID transmissions, creating challenges for students, teachers, and parents. Teachers had to make an abrupt transition to digital teaching platforms such as Zoom, often with little to no training. This sudden shift led to a higher workload, as many had to adjust their lessons to make it align with the new online format. Along with the incredibly high workload, teachers had to juggle both their professional responsibilities as well as their personal ones, with many teachers being parents lacking access to safe childcare. Students faced different obstacles, with many students lacking access to home internet and digital devices. It was reported that approximately 463 million students worldwide were unable to access online learning from home. While many students did have access to home internet and digital devices, they still suffered from this change. Due to a lack of a structured learning environment, many students were struggling with time management and staying motivated. It was also found that students were struggling with increased feelings of isolation and anxiety, drastically affecting their emotional well-being. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the inequities of technology and internet access, causing a significant learning gap. It was also found that approximately 826 million students worldwide lack access to a household computer, while around 706 million students do not have access to internet at home. This created what is known as the homework gap. In 2023, it was found that 22% of teens in the United States relied on using a cell phone to complete their homework, and 12% were unable to access their assignments online. The pandemic had the largest impact on students from low-income families and students of color. It was found that 27% of Native American students, 19% of African American students, and 17% of Hispanic students either had no internet access or only had dial-up access, with only 7% of white students struggling with this issue. With the sudden shift to remote learning, the behaviors and mental health of students were greatly affected, with the rise of social media playing a big part in these changes. There was a significant increase in phone usage during classes after the return to in-person learning. This causes great concern for both students' mental health and academic performance. Social media is now a big part of many students' daily lives, with 95% of teenagers using social media regularly. Many students also had to readjust during the return to in-person teaching, with social skills affected from the long period of relying on digital communication. This has led to increased stress and anxiety, with a study in 2022 showing that 95.7% of students were experiencing moderate to severe mood disorders. The shift to remote learning expanded the role of parents in their children's education, giving many parents the new role of being teaching assistants, motivators, and at-home technological support. Parents often had to help their children with explaining different concepts when they struggled with their courses, leaving many parents with having to take the time to refamiliarize themselves with the different topics that their children are learning. Parents also had to assist in keeping their children engaged in schoolwork while in a distracting environment, with some setting up designated at-home learning environments. The COVID-19 pandemic caused the government and educational authorities to rise to action to implement a range of policies to address the rising challenges. In the United States, there was nearly $190 billion in COVID relief aid sent to public schools through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This was used for a multitude of different purposes, such as providing technology for the new remote learning, addressing learning loss, and to support the staff. There were also policies enacted for the closing and reopening of schools and vaccinations. The United States Department of Agriculture had waivers issued that allowed for meals to be picked up by parents and students in order to support those who relied on school lunches. While many would say that we have recovered from the pandemic, the effects of COVID still continue to affect education, leaving students to continue struggling with the long-term consequences. Despite efforts to get students back to pre-COVID academic levels, students still require, on average, an additional 4.8 months of schooling for reading and an additional 4.4 months in math. It is predicted that the learning gap will still be present even as far into the 2030s. As we continue to push forward through these obstacles, we need to make sure that we continue to support students academically as well as for their mental health. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you've learned something new with this video. And here I have listed my sources, and then I will also leave those sources down below in the description. Thank you.